Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology, having problems double clicking. And everyone, welcome onto the program. Hopefully you're doing well and you are ready for today's show. Hello everyone in the chat room. Hello everyone out there. Hopefully you're having a fantastic Friday and you are ready for some Computer America. So today on the program, we have none other than Popzara magazine, Nathan Evans. It's always a lot of fun. We have a lot of great topics and we're going to, send this Friday off right. So everyone, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and let's see, one second. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything from, today's show notes. It will have the live video feed. It will have the podcast and all that and more. No recent reviews. Our last one's still the burger, the Impossible Burger. That was a lot of fun to eat. And, not a lot of our other tech reviews were allowed to eat the products because, when you try to eat a 3-monitor stand, it goes down hard and it comes out even harder. So, but everyone out there, check out computeramerica.com. That's the main point of it. And again, let's go ahead and just say, everyone, hopefully you're doing well, and let's go ahead and bring on our guests. So, let's see. So, anything else before we talk about that? No, I don't think so. Be sure to, for everyone out there tuning in on IRN, thank you so much for doing that. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and bring on Nathan. So, as I said before, Popzara magazine, they are a long time. Correspondent, partner, really kind of a partner of the show. They've helped us in our coverage of CES, of E3. They've helped us in so many ways by providing us with not only our gaming segments, but our regular segments here with Nathan Evans. We really appreciate them, and we're happy to have them on. Everyone, once again, Nathan Evans, managing editor. Nathan, how you doing?
Hey, Ben, what's going on? And by the way, I'm very disappointed in you that you didn't get your terminology completely simpatico with me, because you're talking about edible technology.
Yeah,
and you didn't
right?
You didn't mention capsule endoscopy. What the heck? What's going on? Slipping pills that you can swallow, as opposed to tubes getting orificed. Let's just say that.
So right, there's and actually one of our other correspondents, Ralph Bond, he actually did a segment or a story last time about a little robot that's actually in a capsule, in a pill, and you swallow it, and then it kind of has like these little antenna-looking arm things that extend after you swallow it, and it lodges itself in your stomach, and it will release either on command or on a regular schedule. It will release medication into patients without just on the press of a button. So we have talked about that. You're right. I completely forgot about those.
It's funny. It's the saddest little robot in the world. Like, what are you doing, robot? Do I get to go to space? Not really. You get to go to inner space.
Yeah. And
by the way,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I appreciate you calling me a partner of the show. We are the Hawkeye to your Iron Man. So we are here on the peripheral. Never quite the star yet, but always shooting arrows.
Isn't Hawkeye getting his own TV spinoff?
Getting his own TV spinoff.
Yeah.
Not spinoff movie.
Right. No. TV series. That's right.
Well, I guess if you want to call Disney Plus TV, although I don't know. But Disney just announced a lot of stuff coming in their Phase 4, and which is
I'd not heard about that.
Ben, but when you start calling movies in phases, to me, that's just I don't know. It's kind of like how the North Koreans call things mandatory fun. It's like, now this is where fun happens, times.
It's certainly different. I mean, and you have to admit that that's part of the reason why, and this happened since you were last on, that Avatar was dethroned by the Avengers and by the Avengers Endgame.
Kind of it was. It's, that kind of bothered me when I read those stories, because can I give your audience a little journalistic lesson today?
Let's go for it.
Okay, so as people know, at Popzara, we partner with Disney for a lot of things, and we do like them, but it doesn't mean we have to like them. And so I get a lot of their press releases, and full disclosure, if I can pimp a little bit, we do have a podcast for the Lion King movie this week that came out, and you can listen to that. And full disclosure, our editors did see it at a press screening. But what happens is Disney will send out press releases, and when as a reader, as someone who's not an editor, sometimes I can see the effect that Disney's massive PR has on lesser websites and lesser things. Like, you kept hearing the story, Avengers dethrones Avatar, become the biggest movie of all time. And the phrase was biggest movie of all time, biggest. That's just people just regurgitating what Disney said without even thinking about it. Avatar made a lot of money, but even if then you have to get into the argument, like, how much did ticket prices sell? How many tickets did it sell? And if we're talking biggest movie, no, Avatar, Avengers Endgame certainly is the highest grossing movie of all time, no doubt. But biggest movie of all time? I don't even think so. Not even close.
Gone with the Wind, right?
That's the argument, Gone with the Wind. But that's only taking in money. You're taking in what's called ticket sales. You have to do what's called an accumulated gross, where you have to take into account gross ticket sales, but you also have to take into what's called market capital and penetration, which means the peripheral stuff. And all take into account, you could make the argument that Star Wars is the biggest movie of all time. If they were to put Gone with the Wind back in theaters today, I don't think it would gross very much. If you were to put Star Wars back in a theater, I think it would gross $100 million easy. And to my point on that, they did come up with a sequel to Gone with the Wind, and the sequel was so lackluster it couldn't even get a theatrical release.
Well, it's hard to market a title like Goner with the Winder. So, yeah.
Well, but I'll say this. So that's my pet peeve of the week, that when I see this stuff.
And really it's comparing apples to oranges. I mean, like, when I was kind of reading into it, you have to account for a lot of things. Like, they were talking about the fact that the majority of sales for Avatar were 3D ticket sales, so they were more expensive than the regular 2D that everyone normally goes and watches. There was, of course, kind of the economic times. Let's face it, we're in an economic growth period. We're doing good here, and back then it was like 2009 or something like that. It was in the middle of the Great Recession. I mean,
well,
yeah.
And then just on the surface of it, Avatar was a movie starring nobody famous. Let's be honest, nobody famous. It was a new property. It didn't have 12 years of lead-in. We can have a fun conversation. I'm not trying to poo-poo Avengers Endgame.
I think that they're both great movies, so it's not. Yeah,
they're completely different. It's just that what happens is that we get so caught up in the metrics that we never spend time to talk about the metrics, and I think that's lost in it, because there's no other reason for the average human being to care about how much money these movies make if not to discuss the metrics of it. Like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter.
It was so weird to see the elation that happened online about Endgame, like you said, dethroning, about Endgame becoming the highest grossing movie, where it's like, I doubt that any of these people are even shareholders of Disney, let alone are going to receive any kind of dividends.
Yeah, that's
they were
exactly
happy.
It. It's Disney's ability to create like a cult-like fascination with themselves. And I'll say this though, here's one final thought about it. I don't really want to talk about Avatar and Avengers, but I'll say this. Avatar came out in December 2009, and the movie's first weekend gross was like 29 million, 30 million. It was very low. And whereas Avengers Endgame, the first weekend was like 350 million.
Right.
Like, we don't like Avengers Endgame. If Avengers Endgame did not become the biggest movie of all time, that would have been strange. Like, it had everything going for it. It's sort of like you're rooting for the machine, Like, everybody rages against the machine, but nobody rages for the machine.
Well,
they do now.
Isn't that how Terminator eventually becomes the thing where everyone just kind of accepts that the machine is good for us, the machine cares about us, and
exactly. Like, they might be homicidal death Terminator machines designed to kill, but they can also show
Protect
love
us.
and
Yes. Yeah.
give thumbs up
Right. Exactly. So as they fall into lava, I know exactly what you're talking about. So,
as they
but
s- no as because they can't self terminate, so they have to sacrifice themselves, of
true.
which your emotional investment in this big lunking machine will be exploited in future ones when nearly identical Terminators come down, but not the same Terminator wearing the same sunglasses and leather jackets.
I
So
gotcha. I gotcha. Now, all that aside, and great little deviation there, but let's go ahead and talk about a bunch of these topics that you have. And the first one, we touched on it yesterday. If anyone wants to go back and check that out, I was talking to I'm going to say the audience, but it was really to myself about Google and Tulsi Gabbard
oh goodness, yeah.
and Representative Gabbard. We're going to try to keep this away from politics, but this is very interesting to us because, as I was kind of saying yesterday, was that tech companies, for better or worse, they ever since about 2008, with Barack Obama's campaign, with his utilization of social media, and how every single campaign since, it's been how far into the social media sphere, how far into technology can you get to really get your message out, because it's not, no offense, it's not really radio as much, it's not TV as much, it's not printed newspapers as much. Online is where it has to be, and this is why Tulsi Gabbard and Representative Gabbard is suing Google to the tune of $50 million for shutting down her Google ad account for 6 hours, because right after the presidential debate on, or at least the first Democratic debate, she was at one moment the most Googled candidate out there,
Yes.
probably while she was talking, and they wanted to capitalize on that and to prevent fraud. And by the way, Nathan, I'm just going to set this up real quick, and then we can get into it. To capitalize on the momentum of being the most Google candidate on the stage, they wanted to make a large purchase. They never said how much, but probably to the tune of hundreds of thousands, or what have you, or tens of thousands. And Google flagged that immediately as unusual, which it would be for anyone else. They thought it might be fraud. They shut it down. 6 hours later, they had it back up because automatically flagged, and it's Google for Google's sake. Yeah, and it was back up. But that 6 hours, they felt it was a stifling of her freedom of speech, her First Amendment right, and they are suing Google for $50 million.
Yeah.
So, Nathan.
This is interesting. It has nothing to do with politics. Okay, the story can have something to do with politics, but it doesn't. Not really. The biggest news story in American life in the past 4 years has been tech news. You know this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is the way the argument's been framed. The argument has been framed as a conservative versus liberal bias, and that is to miss the point. What happened? The thing about it is when Obama ran for president, the Obama campaign was very successful on Facebook and Twitter and all this, and they bragged about it, and it was considered a good thing. Look at this, smart politics they called it.
Mm-hmm.
When Trump won the election, the same exact statistics and methodologies were cited as a major factor, and it became Russian meddling. It's the exact same thing, and this is what's happening right now. And what's funny is a few months ago there was a conservative radio show, Dennis Prager, who
Mm-hmm.
runs something called PragerU, and he claimed bias against YouTube, aka Alphabet, aka Google, and he sued. And the same tech blogs that are now passing Tulsi Gabbard's story laughed at him. Oh, how can you do that? I thought you were for freedom of speech and capitalism. And the problem is there is a problem. It doesn't matter if you're conservative or progressive or independent. There is a problem, and I'll tell you what it is. It's money. So the problem is this: the Democrats are having these massive debates because there's, I think, 24 or is it 24 or 25,000 people that are running for president?
There's a number.
It feels like it, and most are polling zero, right? Zero. And so, which of these Democrats is going to become the nominee? And the problem is that it's tied to money. It has nothing to do with politics, nothing, because money makes the world go round. And so in order to get on the debate stage, a candidate has to show that they're polling at a certain percentage and they're fundraising at a certain percentage. Notice, and that's the second big one. Here's the problem, though. It's kind of a catch-22. How do you gain momentum when your name recognition isn't such? Because as shown in this lawsuit, Tulsi Gabbard was the most Googled person during the debate. Do you know why she was the most Googled person? Because nobody really knew who she was. I want to know about this person. Clickety, clickety, click, right?
Right.
That's how search engines should work. You don't need to do this with Biden. People know who Biden is. People know who Kamala Harris is for the most part. They know these people have been in the news for a while. Tulsi Gabbard, nobody knows who she is. And so the momentum was forward. Now, I don't necessarily buy Google's argument that it was automatically flagged. This is politics, and I think that there are mechanisms in place.
I completely buy Google's explanation that it was automatic because Google does everything automatic. And if you've been paying attention to YouTube and how they flag things and take things down, I have no doubt that Google has a janky algorithm.
Weaponized. No, I think there's an element that's been weaponized, and I think it's been shown to be such, where you have campaigns that will, what they'll do is they'll automatically trigger what the flagging mechanism for a DDoS is, where what happens is it's similar to how a cable system works when they don't send a repairman to your house every time your cable goes down. They wait 24 hours to see how many people flag before they can determine if it's a cluster.
Right.
Google has been sued by many companies. They have been sued by many companies. They've been sued by many organizations. They've been taken to task in EU. Like at a certain point, the mechanisms that Google employs for self-flagging seem to always happen to the same type of people. They always seem to happen to the same type of organizations. And unless there's bias in the algorithm, which is entirely possible, which is, again, what is being alleged by whistleblowers, that the algorithms that, like you said, that automatically flag have been predetermined to flag certain things. If there has been a history of abuse within political mechanisms such as Google and such as Facebook, of which those candidates that don't necessarily say the things that need to be said, and I'm not talking conservative, but have been, another flag. Like, I don't think you're going to see Kamala Harris be flagged. I don't think you're going to see Joe Biden be flagged. I don't think you're going to see certain candidates like Elizabeth Warren be flagged.
So,
in fact, but I do think those who challenge the momentum will be flagged. And again, you say automatic flagging. I suppose that's in there on some level, but Google also makes tools available. Facebook and Twitter, they make tools available which can and have been exploited by people to automatically trigger an automatic takedown. Of which only at that point can a second look, can a reevaluation and therefore a reinstatement be done.
So
and this happens to such a point, Ben, that it would be ludicrous to think that it's all accidental at this point. It shows a pattern of abuse.
So here's what I think. I think that it was definitely automatic. I think, like you said, she was relatively unknown. She probably didn't spend that much on advertising, and again, they wanted to capitalize on this. They probably deposited a large amount of money, and then they tried to buy ads with it. That could be seen as fraud, which I completely get. My problem, though, comes to the nature of what we've talked about before, and I'm sure that you may have heard about it with the Justice Department opening up an investigation into monopolistic practices and things like that in the tech industry through.
We've talked about this, and I said it should have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, and well, they just opened. Well, hey, they were listening last time we talked about it because they just opened it up.
Hey, they do listen. Hey, how you doing?
They opened up an investigation, and here's the thing: if Google does this, my problem isn't so much the fact that Google did this, which it is a problem. Don't get me wrong, but my problem is that she felt that there was no other reproach that she had because her First Amendment speech was, kind of compromised. There should be another option other than Google, but Google Ads is head and shoulders above anything else.
That's true, and I can speak from experience. With the Popzara website, we do not partner with Google Ads for that very reason. Is that we were flagged, and Google will send you this vague. I'll be honest here. The Google will send you this vague excuse saying, "We know you'd like to know what happens, but we cannot share that information." And I don't know what we did. It could have been like you said. It could have been what we think it was. Our website wasn't configured correctly.
It could have been the murder, but we'll never know.
It could have been everything, but again, these sort of oopsies do not seem to happen to candidates that Google favors. And let me tell you this: in the United States, the FCC mandates that banks, not the FCC, is it the FDA? What are the acronyms? I forget.
Let's see.
Whoever
So
secures money transfers in the United States. I forget who they are, but
yeah.
they mandate that transactions above, I think, what is it, $10,000 be reported. And so Google is smart and big enough to run a financial institution. They partner they have Google Pay services, they have financial transactionatory services. They have these mechanisms in place. And so for an automatic trigger to be determined like this, I can see this. But to say that but again, to say that this candidate who seems to be showing a lot of heat and a lot of competitive advantage in fundraising, like it didn't seem to happen to anybody else. It just seemed to happen to the one candidate that benefited the most from Google. And I'm not alleging any Pizzagate conspiracies or anything here, but as someone who follows this from the other side, I see this all the time. I am not a conservative, but when
Mhm.
this happens to conservatives, it happens so much, so consistently to conservatives. You would have to be a fool to think it's all programmatic. It happens so much, and now that it's happening to Democrat candidates openly, it's getting attention and being taken seriously, as it should be. And I feel bad for Tulsi because she did a great job at the debate, but that's not enough. You have to play the game. And the
Well,
game is money, the game is penetration, the game is marketing.
and that's why, and that was, kind of my point yesterday, was that the reason why you want those ads there, especially, as people are searching your name, was that, potentially if you search Tulsi Gabbard, as in to find out who she is, maybe the first 2 or 3 pages, which is really all the search results that are going to be seen by people, at most, and by the way, it's probably just the first page. If the first 5 links are articles about Tulsi Gabbard by other people, that's not her getting her message out. Like, she wants her website to be the first thing that people see, so that potentially they go to her website, see her viewpoints, potentially make a campaign contribution. She wanted her website to be the first thing, and she wasn't able to do that. So yeah, that's why this is such a big deal for her.
It's a big deal for it's a transaction. It's a transitional change as well. Again, we've spent the last 3 years now just getting Russiagate pounded in our heads. How come Facebook didn't do more? Cambridge Analytics, and this ties into everything. Again, I want to be clear. This stuff is not new. None of this stuff is new. This stuff has been going on for almost 10 years. It's just now being taken seriously because it's affecting a political mechanism that is not what is perceived as a threat. If you run a tech website in the United States and Europe, if you run a tech website, chances are you are founded by venture capitalism that has deep roots within what's called netroots, which is steeped in social activism.
I'm
There
Yeah.
mailing lists, mailing lists, triggering systems, campaigns. It is a sophisticated organization that can use the tools provided by Facebook and Twitter and whatever to help your campaign. But when those tools are not popular, they become predatory. They can become what's the word I'm looking for? Exploitative, right? They can become
Mhm.
exploitative, and that's no good. And this is long overdue. I'm not sure if I would have sued, but what else can she do? What's
Yeah,
and you do
suing.
realize that look, you do realize that lawsuits are not always initiated to get money. You know that
Right.
a lot of it's just to get attention.
And I think that's exactly what this is. This is to draw attention to what happened here. The $50 million is, of course, a very large number, which grabs headlines. So I'm sure that's a part of the reason, is just to bring Google to the
Can,
table. And
can,
by the way,
can I
because
let me tell you something real quick. I shared with you a story from The Verge, right?
I was just about to transition to that one next. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean the
Oh
article I
well,
shared you
well the first one.
specifically
Yeah.
was from The Verge about Tulsi Gabbard.
You're right.
Okay. Do me a favor. Scroll to the bottom of the page and look at the comments.
Yeah, I'll probably have to screen those first because
No, 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 no. Just do it. Trust me. Trust me.
okay,
This is easier than you
okay.
think. Just take a look at the comments.
So let's see. So as soon as I find the comments, because it looks like
They're
they're
not
not
there.
there.
They've been. This is what happens. Again, this is what I'm going to have. They do not want conversation on this particular thing. This is a specific way of getting out a message. And again, what is being said and what is not being said speaks volumes and speaks louder than words sometimes. And again, I think this conversation should have happened a while ago, but it only seems to be a problem when you have a lackluster and apathetic tech press who does not seem interested in investigating fraud until it happens to themselves. And so I applaud this. I'm sorry this is happening to Tulsi. I wish her campaign the best. I'm not, again, I don't vote Democrat or Republican, but I wish her the best because she's an interesting person. And by the way, I'm just going to come out and say it. A lot of those Google searches is because she's really hot. And usually we do not get presidential
Mm,
candidates that are that attractive. I'm
mm.
sorry. We do
I
not.
feel like you haven't taken a good hard look at Bernie Sanders. But I understand. I understand.
I know. Look. We all felt the burn, right? But
Yeah, there you go.
yeah,
But
I find that Larry David come hither look so sexy.
so also you kind of lumped these two articles together, and I wanted to talk about this as well because it was huge. And really, this is something that I also lumped together yesterday, and I wanted to bring up again with you was that Facebook was hit by the FTC with that. All the headlines are with the quote unquote largest fine ever handed down by the government, which was $5 billion, which is good. But if you were paying attention to Facebook, their stocks actually went up when they heard $5 billion because Google was like, we're gonna get hit with a penalty between 3 and 5 billion, and then they were hit by $5 billion, and they're like, oh, we had that money on hand. It's okay, folks. Nothing happened.
Yeah,
Essentially, they weren't really
that's.
punished.
I'm gonna surprise your listeners. This is the kind of stuff that makes me appreciate people like Elizabeth Warren and her bluster. When a company is worth, and I was looking this up when you called me, right?
Hmm.
Facebook's net worth is almost $570 billion.
Which is down from like a year ago from like 7 or 800 billion. Like they're huge.
Yeah, they're giant. They're just $5 billion. That is not even a drop in the bucket. That is like the
Their
the crafts table budget.
last year's their net income the profit that they made was $33 billion, and this is like 1/7 of that. Like it's really not going to be felt except for maybe a few shareholder buybacks.
It will be absorbed as the body fails to absorb those endoscopic capsules we talked about. It does not matter. I believe that if you're going to punish a company, right? If you're going to punish a company financially, it should be commensurate to what their total revenue is. For example, don't fine someone $5 billion when they have $570 billion. Fine them like 10%. Let them
That's
feel it. If they don't feel it,
that's
nothing will happen.
exactly the punishment that happens in European countries. Like that's why you hear about millionaires who speed and then they end up with a $20,000 speeding ticket, is because if you charge them $100 like everyone else, hey, that's not discouraging them from speeding. That's why Google was handed down a fine by the European Union of like $3 billion when their operating costs were pretty close to that. A percentage-based fee is much more important than just a quote-unquote largest fee handed down by the FTC.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no nice way of saying this. I mean, again, please separate politics from reality. But you see this happening under the Trump administration. This would have never really happened in the Obama administration. Obama administration was popular, again, for the reasons I cited. The Obama administration was populated by people from these industries, from Google, from Amazon, from Apple, and the lobbying groups were big. And it was a symbiotic relationship, which continues. Um, the fact that the tech industry is so aggressive towards the Trump administration and vice versa. I mean, we saw what happened with net neutrality. And who's the head of the FTC? Is it Ajit Pit? What's his name?
Ajit
Uh,
Pai.
Ajit Pit. Yeah, I mean they ended net neutrality. I mean the world has been thrown into chaos. I mean, haven't you noticed? But you know, but the fact is that the Trump administration, just from the sheer fact that it is not the Obama administration, that's why these things are happening now. They're much more receptive to monopolistic breakups. It's just the nature of things.
So
This is
and on top of that, and one thing that I brought up yesterday that I want to bring up today was there was another article about lobbying spending, and for I know that it's compared to a $5 billion fine, it's not much, but every one of the tech companies, and by the way, I think Google is leading. No. Facebook is leading with like $3.1 million in lobbying efforts per quarter. Like this is just that last quarter. You have Apple doing like 2.3 million. You have Amazon doing like 3 million. You have and Google doing like another 1.8 million or something like that. Among the lobbying firms, it's telecommunication and it's
Mhm.
tech companies who are spending the most money to get legislation at least tamped down as best they can
Here,
before it gets
here's the
passed.
thing. I'm going to surprise your audience. Okay, I'm going to surprise them. I'm
You've been
all
doing
for
that a lot
lobbying.
today.
I'm all for lobbying. I think lobby away. Does anybody out there remember the former senator from Alaska, Ted Stevens, years ago? Very
No,
old
we
man,
don't.
one of the longest serving senators in the country from Alaska. He became famous years and years ago before memes when he called the internet a series of tubes.
Oh, okay.
And the problem is that for a bunch of democratically elected people who don't necessarily have any type of sophisticated technological background, I want them to be educated. And if that education has to come from lobbyists or if it has to come from whatever, I do not want their education happening on Facebook and Twitter alone. And because I
Well,
think you and I
Nathan,
both
hold on to that
both know this
thought
very well.
because Nathan, hold on to that thought. We have music playing in the background. We'll be right back. More Computer America, more Nathan Evans. And I promise we're going to pick up the pace a little bit. We have a lot more topics. Everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America right after this.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is, it is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on. Everyone, I hope you're doing well. And by the way, if you missed any of our conversation with Nathan Evans, and of course anything that we talked about here today, in the show notes we'll include links to everything, all the articles that we were citing and things like that. And of course, Popzara.com if you'd like to check out more of what Nathan and his writers do over there. They do a very good job and lots of reviews. Very interested about the Lion King one because. And by the way, just the Lion King thing, just to touch back on that real quick. I mean, I heard so many people who are just like, I can't believe they did this, and I can't believe that they, it doesn't have as much heart or soul as the old cartoon did and things like that. I'm like, there's a 5-year-old somewhere who's never seen the old one and is like, great, he gets to watch that in a theater. Good for him. Like I don't know. Okay, but anyways, popzara.com. And by the way, we also have the podcast wherever podcasts are heard. Search Computer America, and today's show should pop up sometime after the program. Of course, you're listening to us live on IRN, or you can watch or listen to us live on IRN, or watch us live on Twitch.tv. So Nathan, thank you for continuing on with us, and yeah. So actually, yep, okay, and yeah, thank you for continuing on with us.
I find it funny you focused on the Lion King podcast, but you did not focus on our review for the new PC game Attack of the Evil Poop.
Well, ever since the flop,
What's going on?
Ever since the flop that was the emoji, since the Emoji Movie, where the poop emoji was kind of the mascot, I knew that poop-based characters just aren't selling nowadays.
Have you not been to a Walmart? Have you not been to a Walmart in the past 2 years?
I have. Was I supposed? Did I gloss over something?
They have aisles, plural, dedicated to poop toys. I saw a handbag for little girls shaped like poop, and I thought to myself, South Park, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
everyone talks about how like The Simpsons got it right with Donald Trump, but no one ever says, you know what, South Park got it right with crap toys.
Well,
Like Mr. Hanky, remember
yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Hanky?
There's
Yeah.
there's actually an article, and I can't believe this reminded me of it, but there was an article a while ago that if you were to distinguish an artificial intelligence, like let's say a point to which artificial intelligence and humans have become so indistinguishable, how do you recognize human from machine? And in
The
one
Turing
word,
test, right? The Turing test.
kind of, but it was in one word. How do you differentiate a person from a machine in one word? Yes, Craig in the chat room has it right. The
Hey,
word,
Craig.
hey Craig, indeed. The word poop. Poop was the word that made people giggle. It elicited a certain emotional response that is just innate in all humans because it's something that we all have to deal with, and it's innately funny for some reason that machines just don't get that humor. So if you ever need to determine a robot from a person, poop. There you go. A little survival tip. So, anyways, we continue on here, and we are just wrapping up this whole thing with the Facebook, the FTC, the settlement, that kind of thing. And we were talking about lobbying efforts, and you were mentioning that lobbying is not inherently bad, which is very true. It's how you educate and get people's attention, and essentially assert your position and your on your elected representatives. That's great. My point with bringing that up was just the fact that, and really more to the point of Facebook, was that Facebook has been crying out, like saying that we want government regulation. We want Facebook to tell us the rules to play by, and we will play by those rules. Up until this point, we've had no direction, and it's really hard to go in blind on this. And my point with this was that Facebook is asking for direction, but Facebook also wants to be not just at the negotiation table with what regulation goes into their business, but they want to be at the head of the table. They want to donate the most money to make sure that whatever regulation is put there was shaped and molded by Facebook themselves. So that was why I brought that up.
Facebook and Amazon and Apple, and I beat up on Apple a lot, but to a much lesser extent Apple, because this is just not their market. Their market is not advertising. Their market is not news. They're not part of that. They're not a data collection center for that. They're a product company. But all the rest, including Microsoft, Microsoft was better situated because they've been through this game before, and they've been sued, and they've been found guilty of it, and they have compromised. But Google and Amazon and all these companies, I think they were legitimately caught unawares that they could get through this, and they could continue to manipulate and exploit people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, because they were celebrated because these tools helped give an advantage to, I don't want to say political, but to politicized campaigns. And it's only since if you're gonna come up with a product that's gonna give your opponent an advantage, then don't be surprised when your opponent uses that same advantage. It's old Sun Tzu. I forget the exact term in the Art of War, but it's one of good old Sun Tzu's greatest aphorisms. So what's going to happen is I expect lots of settlements. I expect lots and lots of settlements, and they're trying to get this done before the 2020 election because they somehow think that Russian bots are going to influence an election again. And even though there's absolutely no evidence they had anything to do with the last one, but the fact is, hysteria sells and advertising sells. And again, I just want to end this conversation where I began. As a democracy, we've allowed our elections to be manipulated, not just by online social media, but by television stations. The idea that a presidential candidate is somehow given preferential treatment because they've raised money is ridiculous to me. I find that offensive. But that is what we've allowed. We've allowed that to happen. And so because the implication, Ben, is that if you're not raising enough money, then we don't care about you because we want to know that you can pay us if you become a serious candidate. And to me, that is repulsive. And I think the Democratic Party should reject that. I think they've tried to, but at the end of the day, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, they're all hypocrites. Whatever sells. And this is politics in America. It's money talks. I don't know exactly all the parameters, but I advise your listeners to go out and check out how elections are done in Japan, where a lot of this is not allowed. Like you're not
I
allowed to advertise
yeah,
particular candidates.
I've always been a fan of kind of state sponsored elections where you apply to get a certain amount of money that is provided by the government, and essentially you campaign on like essentially a set amount of money. Like it's not, it takes money out of politics, and especially in the UK where like you can where you can kind of campaign for like a month at a time. Because boy, am I sick of the 2016 elections just ending and then they going, what happens in 2020 or what happened in 2018? Like, campaigning never stops, and it's very annoying. But
Yeah, exactly,
this,
exactly. And I don't particularly find any one system to be great. I do think though that again, this is I'm gonna like I said I'd end it is that I think the party's over. I mean, again, they Facebook and Amazon, they had a good ride, but at the end of the day, this is what happens. They've turned your weapon of destruction or mass direction against you. And it's fine and dandy when Obama does it, but when Trump does it, it's the end of the world. And that's not any type of preferential treatment for any of these candidates. It's just that this is exactly what's been happening. You just noticed now. That's the fun
So,
part about being an independent. You get to see
to
all this crap.
to and hey, and I love ending on the word crap because actually we see all this poop.
Or
There
poop.
we go.
Sorry,
Let,
poop.
us go and do that. So, but let me get one thing in real quick, and then we're going to move on to some more fun things here on the program because we are
Yes,
quickly
fun.
running out of time. Real quick, I wanted to get this out there because I checked yesterday live on the air. I did not show any of my information, so don't bother going back and looking. Equifax, you can go out and check and see if you
Yes.
are compromised. Equifaxbreachsettlement.com. And you can actually find out. We checked with 2 other people in my household. Both of them were indeed compromised. So
One here, by the way. One here. My roommate. was compromised.
exactly. So 147 million people. Odds are someone in your house was compromised. So just want to get that out there.
Did you go through this? Did you see that nonsense though? Like the stipulations, like you have to prove that you did. Like no, pay up. Like
You
I'm
have
not
to
doing work for you.
you have
So-
to prove that you are getting credit monitoring services, and if you have that, you can of course request the cash instead. The money is strictly for supposedly damages done to your identity and paying. But you're right. They lost your information, and they're making you jump through hoops to
Many hoops, by the way. Many
hoops.
hoops.
to actually pay up on the settlement that they agreed with the U.S. government. So
It just makes you feel like you're applying for food stamps, doesn't it? Like the way they phrase all their phrases. Because we had to do it for my roommate, right? We had to go through it,
Mhm.
and I got to tell you something. Yeah, he was affected, and I'm not going to go through that nonsense. But man, he just gets so much. Like the amount of credit card offers he got went from like 1 to like 400 a month. I'm not joking. If I go to my mailbox right now, it's going to be stuffed with "You're pre-approved" from the Indian Nation's lending tree.
yeah,
I didn't know you existed.
I feel really bad for anyone named Aaron Aardvark who was compromised in this whole thing because I bet it was alphabetical, and yeah, it's. Yeah.
Sorry,
So I'm glad that you included the link. I just want to throw that out there because we had a much longer
Yes,
segment
please.
yesterday on the program. So that's
Everybody should do this. Everybody should check because
It takes like 2 seconds. It really
it's
does.
like $125.
But you won't see it until January 23rd at the earliest, 2020, by the way.
And
So,
and if you ever see it, like that's
If
the
you ever
thing.
see
Like,
it.
yeah, if you ever see it. But you know what? Whatever.
Yeah.
Just go do it. Go do it. It's Friday. You got nothing else going on. You're gonna go see a Quentin Tarantino movie later. Just do this real quick. Get it done.
it does not take too long, so check that out.
No.
Now, let's move on to some more fun things. And how about we talk about Lost? And one of my favorites, I've read the books. I've really, anything by Douglas Adams, I reread them about once a year because they're so convoluted in a good way that it's like reading a brand new book every single time. So
Can I just say something? I want
for
to
it.
say happy birthday to Popzara senior editor Chris Mitchell. It's his birthday today. It's his 42nd birthday. And that
Congratulations.
means, you know what it means, Ben, you know what it means. 42.
the meaning of life, absolutely.
The meaning of, no, that's not Monty Python. Please get your nerd facts right. Life, the universe, and everything. The meaning of life.
No.
Please.
The answer to life, yeah, and it's 42. That was the robot that they built to ponder the question, or to ponder the answer to life.
the giant machine that took forever, and then eventually it came back, and then had to. Yeah. By the way, those books are nuts. You know, I think we both are on board. We both love Douglas Adams, big
Hmm.
fan and huge fan. And I got to relate this to tech. So here's my story. So I want people to go and look up the history of Douglas Adams and Stephen Fry. And I think we all like Stephen Fry. Do we like Stephen Fry? I like Stephen Fry. Are you a fan?
The only thing I know about Stephen Fry is that Fry from Futurama was named after him.
Yeah, Stephen
I'm
Fry.
sure I've heard something about him.
Is the biggest advocate of tech you could ever imagine. Despite the fact this guy has his roots in comedy and theater, this is the guy that celebrates Linux, about GNU. One of the first human beings to have an iPad. He was friends with Steve Jobs. He was personal best friends with Douglas Adams. He was his next door neighbor. And there's amazing stories in his autobiographies, right? Where he talks about hanging out with Douglas Adams and how they used to geek out over Apple IIs and modems, and they used to go to the tech stores.
Hmm.
Like, he is the biggest tech nerd you could ever imagine. I believe he's the most successful audiobook narrator of all time. Like, he's a
Hmm.
big tech guy. And the idea, the idea of the book itself, the Hitchhiker's Guide itself, the idea of ever present, was based on Stephen Fry. And if you go and watch the movie that came out a couple years ago, Stephen Fry narrates it, and it's a big fan.
Gotcha.
Hulu's making a series on this, and I'm curious. I don't know if I'm excited yet, but I'm curious.
Yeah, yesterday was announced that NBC Universal is going to have their own streaming service where they're going to exclusively show The Office after 2020 when it leaves Netflix. So you can add NBC Universal, you can add Disney Plus, you can add Hulu, Netflix, HBO Go or HBO Now, whichever one it is. There's one for Showtime, there's one for Cinemax, there's one for
the cut cord has become a tapestry.
there are so many, and I think Hulu. I'm happy that it's coming to Hulu because I think between Amazon, Netflix, and Hulu, they're still putting out probably the best originals until Disney, kind of comes out with theirs.
What's funny?
I'm looking forward
Here's
to
the
it.
thing. Netflix puts out the best originals overall. I don't think anybody argues with that. Hulu puts out some very interesting originals. I actually think Amazon puts out the second best, but Amazon's interface and methodology is so clumsy that it's hard to enjoy them, whereas Hulu does make it easier. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. There's some there where there's something there where they don't want you to really know what's exactly on there because then you'll realize how little of value is on there.
Yeah, but the Amazon thing is interesting because Amazon does put a lot of money, but Amazon is basically cloning Netflix. Like, I don't think there's any methodology. I think they just
There's
write
two,
checks.
and I'm actually curious what you think about these. There's two I'm really, really looking forward to that Amazon is going to adapt soon. There's of course the Lord of the Rings, which I think they gave it like a $100 million budget or something like that to do like a series.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for essentially they want to recreate Game of Thrones with Lord of the Rings, and Lord of the Rings has a lot to go on.
With the Lord of the Rings name. I don't know if it's going to have any content from the Lord of the Rings.
I think that they're going to adapt some of the Silmarillion, and of course just draw on that, but it's going to be a completely new thing. Like, it's not going to be the trilogy that everyone fell in love with. So anyway, so there's that. I'm really looking forward to that one whenever that comes out, and I'm not sure how much you know about this, but they're adapting the Wheel of Time. Do you know anything about the Wheel of Time?
I am tacitly familiar with the Wheel of Time. I saw this announcement a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on who's the guy who wrote Wheel of Time?
Robert Jordan.
Robert Jordan. He's not the one who. Let me just make sure. Let me make sure.
And the series was finished by Brandon Sanderson.
Okay. No, I didn't want to confuse that with that other thing they're making a series of, which is everything. The one with the polar bears. They made a movie with the.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was the Golden Compass, I think.
Yeah, Golden Compass, and I know Netflix is throwing their hat with The Witcher, based on the
right, yeah,
based not on the games, by the way, but based on the books.
The books, which is a good move, great move.
And so yeah, somebody thinks they're going to have the next Game of Thrones, and that's what worries me, and that's what worries me about Amazon is that Amazon's methodology, like I said, Amazon is not an innovator in any way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
They basically take what anybody else has done and said we can do it bigger and better. And I think they said we looked at Lord of the Rings and we want some of that. We want some of that. Let's give us some of that. What do we got? And the funny thing about Amazon is that you'd think Amazon would have a better synergy for this stuff because they do control so much, but I don't know. Like the best thing I've ever seen on Amazon, the best thing has been Good Omens, the adaptation of Terry Pratchett.
I've heard good things. I've not seen it
Yeah,
yet.
it's pretty good. But most of their stuff is just erratic and just all over the place. And I'll say this. I got one comment about Amazon stuff. Like I said, their interface is garbage. Amazon, if you're reading this, fire the people that made your interface because they suck.
They do it on purpose. I promise.
But even when I watch it on on a brand new Apple TV, it's like going to web TV. Like it just doesn't even look good.
I hate it because like I want to watch half the stuff there, but then it's like you click on it, it's like, oh, we can have that delivered to your door. Oh, it costs $4. It's like, what the heck? Like just
No, okay. So if I watch Amazon Prime on my computer, right? It's the Amazon website. They
Yeah.
integrate that service into that cluster. Well, that mess. And if I watch Amazon Prime or the Prime Video or anything else, the interface there is something out of an. It's like going back in time. Kids, if you want to know what the internet was like in 2003, Amazon Prime, the app, that's the internet. It's web TV, and it's garbage, and it's so slow and not fluid. It's horrible. It's just terrible. But so real quick, what I wanted to give you an example is so Woody Allen had a deal with Amazon a few years ago to make movies, right? Because Amazon was just throwing money at them,
right.
And and I don't want to get into the mechanics of it, but Woody Allen was controversial again when for whatever reason they said he was controversial for the Me Too thing, and Amazon pulled his movie and did not allow him to take his movie back, and that is not right. And he sued Amazon, and I think Amazon's going to give the movie back, but if Amazon is going to be a competitor for this, if Amazon's going to do this, if Amazon's going to be a content provider, I don't think I can think of a more devastating and destructive element in Hollywood, because this is a pattern with Amazon. Amazon did this years ago. They've been accused of predatory practices with booksellers. Like if you don't sell your book at our price, we're going to take it back. You can't make this crap up. This poop up. But there was a case years ago where there was a copy of 1984, George Orwell's 1984, and Amazon had a dispute with a bookseller. And what happened was, even if you bought 1984 on your Kindle, Amazon went into your Kindles and removed it because of a dispute. And you see this sort of thing happen like with Dish Network all the time, or Dish Network, where they
just happened with the Microsoft's bookstore through the Edge browser, and they
that depresses me so much that I don't even want to get. You know what? I'll get into it a little bit, but it still depresses me. So for years, Windows did not have a decent ebook reader. They just didn't have it. You've seen Macs. Whether you hate Macs or love Macs, Macs had a very good ebook reader with Apple Books.
Right.
And Windows didn't have anything. Nothing. Garbage. And so Microsoft takes Edge browser, which is a mediocre browser, but they somehow piggybacked EPUB reading onto it and turned the Edge browser into the best ebook reader out there. And if all you with Windows 10, Edge browser as it exists today reads ebooks better than any software I've ever seen. It's amazing. It's really good, full fit. And they had a bookstore to go with it, but it was half-hearted.
But it wasn't popular either, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't popular at all because I don't think Windows people read books. If they do, they have Kindles.
And also they didn't advertise it whatsoever.
They have nothing. Like, we're just going to put it out there because everyone else is doing it. Because that's what Microsoft was doing. They had Groove Music. They had Cortana, which we could talk about if you want later. They just Me Too.
Yeah,
They put no effort into anything. And it was all
still
garbage.
rocking their Zunes, and I hear you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not good. And so anyway, they pulled the bookstore, and people's purchases were like, well, too bad. And at least with Groove Music, when they killed that off, at least they sided with Spotify. But no, and now they're getting rid of the Edge browser and they're replacing it with this generic derivative
Chromium.
clone of Chrome.
Yeah.
And I've used it and it's no good. It's no good. It doesn't have any of those features. I don't know why anybody on this planet with a brain cell would want to use this hacked up, chopped up,
The only
forked
reason
version of Chrome.
the only reason I would definitely the only reason that I would actually recommend going with Chromium rather than what Windows was doing was for the same reason I never got into the Edge, even though it was a very responsive, very lightweight browser, was that add-ons. I mean, for productivity,
But
for
you already have
browsability.
Chrome. Like, you already have Chrome. Why would you want to use a version that's less?
Well, hey, and that's why is because something natively out of the box, instead of the most searched result in Bing and of course with Edge, instead of it being download Chrome or Chrome download, let it be just have a version of it yourself and just use it.
But it's not as good. Like, that's the thing. Like, even the best
Neither was
version
the
of
Edge
Chromium
browser.
is not as good as Chrome.
The Edge browser was never going to be popular as long as add-ons weren't a thing, and Microsoft was not going to support add-ons the way that Chrome does.
But that's the thing, though. The Chromium browser will not support the add-ons that Chrome will because it will be forked. There's going to be just from that alone.
You don't think so? I
issues.
assume because it was based on Chromium, any add-on that worked with Chrome was going to work with Chromium.
Let me ask you a question. You ever use Fire OS on Amazon tablets?
No.
That's based on Android. It's a fork of Android.
Of course.
Does it play all? So by that logic, does it play all Google Play stuff? Not at all. Nothing works for it. It's been so forked that it's no longer compatible with the native kernel. And that's what's going to happen with Chromium. Microsoft is going to, okay, I know why they're doing it. I'll tell you why. It goes back to Internet Explorer. Microsoft wants to take this forked version of Chromium, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they want to sell it to third parties as a stable, non-intrusive Chrome alternative. You know this, right? They still have deals with Internet Explorer. If you go to UPS stores, if you go to U-Haul truck stations, they're all using they're still using Internet Explorer 6, which by the way is still on your Windows, because they have APIs that have been designed for that browser that are so convolutedly intertwined, they cannot use Edge, they cannot use Chrome. They have to use Internet Explorer 6. Here's my thing. Chromium will fail because at the end of the day, all this magic of compatibility that we're being promised will fall by the wayside because it'll be so hacked up by Microsoft that it will no longer be Chromium. It'll be some version of Chrome that is no longer compatible with the real thing. Whereas, in other words, Firefox and Chrome. Now, I'm not the biggest Google fan, and I think their privacy sucks, but that will continue because its acceptance is so integrated with plugins. I agree with you. I just don't think it's going to happen because I think Microsoft will screw up the compatibility.
Right. Yeah. I'm certainly hoping. And hey, and to bring it back around because we have like 2 minutes, and I wanted to to get back to this real quick. The Lost Producer with Hitchhiker's Guide TV treatment.
Yes.
Are you and let's see. So of course there was the big movie. What'd you think of the movie, by the way, back in 2005?
I thought the movie was decent. I thought it was decent.
I'm
not a big poo-poo of adaptations because people forget that this did not begin as a book. It began as a radio show on BBC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
BBC Radio. It has always been adaptable. And Douglas Adams, if nothing, was a soothsayer because he himself worked on that script. He himself said that Hitchhikers is adaptable. It adapts to things, and so it becomes a new version every time it adapts. It's brilliant. It's, by the way, it is one of my 2 favorite books of all time. It is probably, if I had to go to an island somewhere, that old thing.
What book
I
would
would
you
bring Hitchhikers with me, and because I love the series, I love the series dearly. The world suffered a gigantic loss with Douglas Adams, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the right people, like if they can do something akin to the way Amazon did Good Omens and that sort of fealty to the material, then the cast has to be good. I don't mind Americans in the roles. I don't mind Americans, but it's instinctively British, and I think it works better with the British sensibility. I want to see what they're doing. I would love to see a new version of this, but it has to be respectful to the source material and realize that as funny as Hitchhikers is, it's also pathological. It's a very pathologically intelligent, brilliant piece of writing. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see a new version of it. If I could see stone cold dead Deadeye's Lion King, then I can see a new version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And I just realized that's probably through some fault of my own. I didn't realize it had already been canceled. One of my favorite books is Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. So.
They've made versions of that. The new version you're talking about with Elijah Wood. Pretty decent.
Yeah. I had not seen it.
Yeah. You just said one of my favorite books, but I have not seen the show.
I didn't even know it was on. I did not even know it was on. That's completely my fault. Sorry about that. But hey Nathan, we are flat out of time. If people want to find out more, if they go to popzara.com, what are some of your favorite things that you have up on your site right now?
A lot of new podcasts. A new podcast came out today. Movie reviews, new stuff, new game reviews, a lot of good stuff out
Mario
there. Go read it.
Maker
Go listen to it.
is on there as well. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. We love it.
Yeah, with
Attack of the Poop. It's a real thing.
Absolutely. So, hey, everyone, go check that out. Of course, we'll have links in the show notes. Nathan, I want to thank you so much for coming out to Computer America and joining us once again. Always a fun conversation. Looking forward to having you on next month. So, Nathan, thank you so much.
Go see some movies. Bye-bye. Be safe. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. And, hey, we'll catch you next time, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Everyone, until next time, have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.